All right, at this time, we're going to call to order the work session of the Franklin County Board of Commissioners on Tuesday, March the 30th, 2021 at 6 o'clock p.m. at the Franklin County Justice Center in Carnesville, Georgia. And we just note for the record that we have a quorum. All commissioners are present. We want to welcome everyone and thank you for coming tonight. At this time, Commissioner Foster is going to give an invocation, and afterwards we ask that you remain standing for the pledge. Please stand.
Dear Lord, thank you for this beautiful day, Lord. Thank you for giving us the ability to gather here today. Please, Lord, let us make the best decisions for the county tonight, Lord. In your name I pray. Amen.
Amen. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. At this time, we need to approve the agenda for tonight's meeting. Is there a motion to approve the agenda for the meeting as presented?
I make a motion that we approve tonight's agenda.
Okay, thank you. Commissioner Swells has made the motion. Is there a second?
I second.
All right, thank you. Commissioner Franklin has seconded the motion. All in favor of the motion to approve tonight's agenda as presented, signify by raising your right hand. All opposed, same sign. The motion will carry 4-0, and tonight's agenda is approved. The next item on the agenda is personnel, and at this time I'm going to ask Mr. Turner to update the board on any personnel changes and introduce some new staff.
Yeah, absolutely. So on introduction of new staff, we actually have our new EMA 911 director, Mr. Ryan Parks. There he is. Started on March 8th. He's coming from Royston. He's current fire chief. Also has been a dispatcher and code enforcement as well. So welcome to Ryan.
Welcome.
Thank you. And we also have Andy Sorrow.
Okay.
So Andy has actually been with us, so he's in a new role, not a new hire, but he is actually, he was a maintenance tech for us and has been promoted to the position of maintenance director as of the first week of March. Thank you, guys.
Okay, thank you. On behalf of the board, we want to welcome both of you. We look forward to working with you. So welcome aboard. The next item on the agenda is public comment. So at this time, we're going to open the meeting to public comment. During this portion of the meeting, any member of the public can address the board on any topic of concern. This is a comment section and not a question and answer section, but if you do have questions, we ask you to write those down with your contact information and give them to the clerk, and then we'll try to have somebody contact you and answer your concerns within a few days. Please understand, the board is not going to be able to answer or discuss any pending planning or zoning items. It's very important that all planning and zoning items be handled during the specific meetings that are set aside for those issues so that all applicants and petitioners have the opportunity to be present and are given due process. So that's very important. When you come up to the podium, please start by giving us your name and address so the clerk can record that. In order to facilitate the meeting, we're going to ask everyone to limit your comments to 5 minutes or less, and each person may speak once. You cannot yield unused time to another person, so you have up to 5 minutes. And the clerk has a timer that she's going to start just so you can look at that and kind of gauge your marks accordingly. Members of the public are required to follow the same rules of decorum that each of the commissioners must follow, and that means just respectful discourse and avoiding any personal attacks. All comments should be addressed to the chair, and members of the public may not interrupt or make other comments while someone else is speaking. So this time, would anyone like to come up to the podium and make a public comment? Anyone? Anyone with a public comment? Okay. Hearing none, we'll move on to the next.
Wait, just to clarify, we can't comment on anything about, we bring that comment to you about roads or interface. I know you can't make any answer.
You can comment on anything you want to. That's right.
Absolutely.
Yes, sir. Okay, come on up and just remember, give your name and address to the clerk so that she can record that. Thank you.
My name is Eric Siegel. I live at 1234 Bader Road, Martinwood.
Okay.
Welcome aboard, you man. Good to see a new face here. Sorry you come in at a sort of a hard time in our county, I think. But no, we understand that we have this proposed rental facility to come into our county. That creates some concerns, and I think many of the people in the county have voiced their concerns to y'all. It's not just the history of the county, but I think that people really feel that our county is at stake with this decision. I think it's going to be very critical for y'all's decision, and I ask you to do some severe homework like we had to do in high school preparing for one of the biggest tests you ever had to take. 'Cause it won't take long until you'll find out the history of this company. They're mired with bribery, foreign trade negotiations, bribery in that, embezzlement, corruption, numerous OSHA violations, EPD violations. It can go on and on. Me personally, I was a contract producer for this company. I had my contract unlawfully terminated on grounds that they seemed fit to think I was a hostile grower. But the facts of the matter was I reported them to the Georgia Department of Agriculture for animal welfare issues. Knowing that was forthcoming, and that was even written in my email to the Georgia Department of Ag, it soon followed once that they found out who reported. But like I say, they changed their story. They had written contracts to me as a grower that I have to sign, and contracts and items in that contract they have to follow. So their paper is not worth anything that their name is signed to or written to. They have a bunch of money. They don't mind paying legal fees, and that's obvious. And I have a hard decision to determine how we got to where we're at, because if anybody, I guarantee you this man wants to do an application background check on somebody and their history. If you got a history, and this is just the start of it, with the corruption of this company, that man ain't gonna tailor one bit to hiring somebody. So I urge you as the commissioners to do some research. I'll leave you these paperwork. The stuff is highlighted. This is nothing that's false. It's all proven facts. You can do your own research. I'm not presenting anything as facts. I'm just giving you the facts as it is. If this goes through, Franklin County will die. I promise you. Because we have, and I thank people, and I put it in my ad last week, I'm so pleased with the sense of community that has come together. This is probably one of the worst things that's ever been proposed to our county, but to see the people come together, the sense of family and community, and how we've all bonded for one common goal for the better of our county. And I think the numbers are speaking that should not be considered for our county. That's all I got to say, and I'll leave this with you.
All right, thank you, Mr. Seegers. Yeah, you can set it up here. Thank you. Is there anyone else who would like to make a public comment?
I'd like to talk to you a minute.
Come on up to the podium, and please remember to give the clerk your name and address.
Wayne Young, 33 Deer Meadows State Road.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Young.
I live across the woods from that thing where, if it goes, about 3/4 of a mile. Straight west. How many days a year does wind blow out east towards me? And I know it's done been tough. But for anybody, I don't think y'all old enough to know what I'm talking about. 1963, 64, 65, 66, 67. I worked out there around Jefferson, right there on 129 and 85. They had one of these stinking plants out there. You couldn't sit down in the daytime and eat your lunch. And Georgia Power wouldn't let you move from your work site. And if anybody wants to put up stuff like that, I don't know what you got on your mind. And now it's time to stop it. Don't let it get out of hand. Stop it now.
Thank you, Mr. Young. Anyone else would like to make a comment? Come on up to the podium. And again, please give your name and address to the clerk. Thank you.
Chris Phillips, 867 Hunter Street Road, Decatur, Georgia, 30577. Mr. Chairman,
Thank
members
you.
of the board,
Appreciate it.
nice to meet y'all. I'd just like to say that I'm here today so that you can put a face to the name. And that, you know what the concern is for the whole county. Today I was in a meeting that has nothing to do with what's going on here. But the meeting was talking about the rapid expansion of how fast Georgia's going to grow. Looking at 20% in population growth within the next 5 years. I believe this gentleman on the right-hand side of here could probably tell you the same information. So I guess industry's great. Our governor is looking for small businesses. They're not looking for major metropolitan industries to come in. Our governor, his main goal and primary is small businesses, small business owners. So in thinking of that, think of the industry that could possibly go throughout the whole corridor. Franklin County has been blessed with like 5 exits on I-85, which is the greatest resource that the county has. I mean, listen, we've tried to get sewer in Franklin County for, I don't know, 25, 30 years. And, you know, they always said, whenever I was a kid, that if you can't get the crapper downstream, well, you're not going to have business. I mean, you know, I'm trying to be humorous, but I mean, that's the truth. You've got to have some way to get rid of your waste. That even goes to large industry. The reason why they chose Franklin County, I believe, is because of the viable resources that we have and the ability for us to get rid of their crap. Plain and simple. That's my thought. Thank you for
Thank you, Mr. Phillips. Anyone else like to speak? Come on up, sir. Just remember to give your name.
My name is Michael from Malia, M-A-L-I-A, 270 Bold Spring Church Road, Carnesville.
Thank you.
About the rendering plant that's being proposed for over there. Thursday we had a big storm last week. Friday morning I got up and I went to Stevens County to get the oil changed in my vehicle. And I went down 145. When I topped the hill right past Tom's Creek Baptist Church, I started smelling the rendering plant that's over there on 145. I was every bit of 5 miles away from it. Now, that day, Friday, that morning, the wind was not blowing. It was a high humidity. I smelled it all the way till I got to Home Depot. If the wind's not blowing a certain way, it's just going to settle. Now, we have a high school right over here that will be approximately 2 miles. If the wind's blowing that way on a good Friday night, high humidity, and people are out there playing football, and other teams are here, do you think they're going to come back to this county? You're going to kill the sports, anything to do with that school. And a lot of people have their kids in school to do good in sports. I know Eddie's son over there plays tennis, and what I've seen on Facebook, he's doing real good. Maybe he can get a good scholarship and go somewhere. But that's an outside sport. Our gym, they suck air from outside. Do you think that's going to smell good over there? They say it won't stink. It will.
Thank you, Mr. Malley. Anyone else want to make a comment? Anyone? Okay. At this time, hearing no more comments, we'll move on to the next item. Tonight, we have a guest speaker, Adam Hazel from the Georgia Mountains Regional Commission, and he's going to come and talk to us about Franklin County's service delivery strategy. Mr. Hazel.
Thank you, Chairman.
I'm glad you could join us.
You could share that with the rest of your members. I'm going to take my mask off only to speak to make sure folks can hear me clearly. I have had my first vaccination shot, and I've had no issues or family issues, so I'm going to try to play it safe here, and I'll speak very softly in a sense. My name is Adam Hazel. I'm the planning director at the Georgia Mountains Regional Commission, and I'm here at the request of the chairman and Mr. Turner to speak about what's known as the service delivery strategy. In the state of Georgia, since the 90s, they've had a request that the local governments, the county and all the municipalities therein, enter into what's called a service delivery agreement, which is a contract that talks about how each local government provides certain services, and the idea is to ensure that there is no overlap, there's no double taxation, and that everybody is planning where to put water, sewer, infrastructure accordingly for the most efficient use of your tax dollar resources. This document is updated every so often to ensure that as things change, there's new water lines, new capacities with solid waste, etc., that the document reflects the current conditions and what is proposed for the next 5 to 10 years at least. This document is now due for renewal. It was originally due last year, but the local governments wanted to postpone it due to a couple of issues they're working on, so they're still under the current service delivery strategy. It is due October of this year, and so we've begun working with the municipalities and the county to try to get the information from each of them as far as what they know to be still the same and valid, and which needs to be addressed and amended. So I've reached out to, spoke with Mr. Turner, I spoke with his predecessor to make sure that you guys could at least see what's on the record. If you're not familiar with it, it's about 150, 170 pages, but most of it is just a form that you're filling out on behalf of each service. A lot of these services, such as probate court, et cetera, they're pretty mundane. The ones that get into serious discourse between folks tend to be water, sewer, and anything where you have multiple providers within the county, because at that point certain folks are competing for territory and what it means for them in dollars and cents. So this is a critical function that is important in order for the county and the municipalities to retain what's called their qualified local government status. When they go asking for money from the state in the form of loans or grants, the state obviously wants to make sure that that request is something on behalf of what is wise use of tax dollars and has been done in accordance with any community input and public planning. So in order to have your QLG status, you have to have a valid service delivery strategy. And so that's why it's being updated. We want to make sure that the county and all the municipalities are meeting the request from the state and are showing not only good faith in those standards, but that you are keeping this up to date on behalf of the services you provide to the citizens. So what I gave each of them is just a copy of one of the pages at the front that lists all the services that is in the current agreement. I'll make sure that Mr. Turner has a copy of the existing one if they don't already have it, in which case they can put it on the website. It is an open public document. It is essentially a Form 1 that says these are all the services that we're discussing and these are the local governments involved, and then a Form 2 on behalf of each individual service, libraries, parks and rec, roads, etc., that asserts whether or not is the county doing it, the municipalities doing it, is there a combination thereof, and if anything requires a map to determine exactly who gets to say where they're delivering the service, that there is a map provided. So as part of this process, I've reached out to the municipalities and the county now, asking them to give me their input. Let me know in advance how much needs to be changed and how much can be just kept the same. Once we get that set and we know roughly how many different elements we have to address, we'll pull the folks together and we'll begin crafting the formal update and have whatever negotiations that you need to have to get that straight. We want this to be as diplomatic as possible. We want to get this done as efficiently as possible. Certain local governments have used this to engage in confrontations with one another, and it can have some pretty dire consequences. Yes, each local government has a responsibility to its constituents to make sure that they're asking in the best faith possible, or doing in the best faith possible, what they have to with regard to the provision of services and with regard to their revenues and expenses. But we also want to try to make sure that we look at this in the big picture on behalf of everybody and don't let this become something that is a costly court battle or drags on that ends up hurting you in other opportunities. You want this sorted out, especially as you get into thinking about water and sewer and roads and what it means to the future as far as any economic development plans in this community. So that's what the document is in a nutshell. And as I said, we're starting the update process on behalf of Franklin County. I've heard from folks so far that they don't want to do another extension. They want to get it right this time. So the homework assignment is obviously for you guys to take a look at it and to, working with Mr. Turner, inform me of those elements that you think are good enough to stay as is and which ones need to be changed and which ones might need to be added. And then once we have that inventory from each participant within the Franklin County Service Delivery Strategy, we'll convene everyone together and see how those lists compare and then begin addressing the items that need to be updated. So at this point, Chair, do you have any questions or any?
Well, I was going to ask the other commissioners, do you have questions for Mr. Hazel about this? When, as far as deadline, how soon do you need to hear from us? We're planning a retreat in the next maybe few weeks or month or two. So do we have time to work on that?
Fine. The ideal is that we've heard from each local government by the end of April, so that way in May we can begin convening any meetings to discuss those elements that need to be amended.
Okay. Any other questions? All right. Do you have anything else you want to discuss?
good.
All right. Well, I appreciate you coming. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right. The next item on the agenda is the Airport Authority update. Most people are aware probably the board held a special joint called meeting with the Hart County Board of Commissioners last Thursday. And during this meeting, the board voted with Hart County to award a request for a proposal, which is kind of like a bid, for a 7-year forensic audit of the Franklin Hart Airport Authority to Carr, Riggs, and Ingram of Miramar Beach, Florida, and the total amount of $40,000. This cost will be split equally between Hart County and Franklin County, so Franklin County's share will be $20,000. This audit will cover the fiscal years 2012 through 2018. And remember, a fiscal year for Franklin County and for the Airport Authority, our fiscal year ends in June and begins in July rather than the calendar year. So when we talk about 2012, we're talking about the calendar year 11-12. So it would actually be July of 11 to June of 12. And then the ending is going to be the 2017-2018 calendar year. That's the fiscal year of 2018. The Airport Authority has already done an audit of sorts of fiscal year 2019. And during this meeting last week, both boards expressed the desire that from that point on, the Airport Authority will conduct their annual audits. I spoke with Kevin McCraney last night, and he is the Secretary Treasurer of the Airport Authority. And he told me that an audit for fiscal year 2020, which will be 2019-2020, will be discussed at the Airport Authority's upcoming meeting, which is in April. And I believe the date is April the 12th. I'm not positive about that, but I believe it's in April. I went back and listened to the December meeting, and the way we came up with the intervals, the question was how long we wanted to go back and conduct this forensic audit, for how long of a period of time. But we used 2019 as our baseline because we had an audit that the Airport Authority did for that year. So we backed up from 2019, and that's where we arrive at the 2012 fiscal year for the 7-year audit. We don't have a firm timeline for the audit yet, but we'll keep everybody updated. I would anticipate this will be a lengthy, months-long process, but I'm not really sure exactly how long that would take. Mr. Turner is going to work with Hart County's administrator to be the primary points of contact for the auditors, and then they will reach out to other individuals that the auditors may request to speak to. Finally, this is just a reminder that we have one vacancy. Franklin County Board of Commissioners appoints 2 people to the authority. We now have one vacancy. Ms. Martha Long has resigned, and so we need to determine how long we're going to advertise before we appoint her vacancy. The first year of her 4-year appointment is up in June, so her replacement would complete the last 3 years of that term, I believe, which would expire in June 2024. So have we begun to advertise yet? Okay. So the question for the board, how long do we normally advertise a board opening? It seems like we've done it for 1 to 2 months. Do y'all?
I don't think there's been a solid set timeline to that.
Commissioners, how do you feel? Do you think a month is sufficient, 30 days, or do we need to do 2 months?
I think a month would be more than enough time. 30 days would be fine.
Okay. Well, let's plan. Did we set a date when we started the advertisement? Like, did we specify?
I can go back.
Okay. Let's just add 30 days from tonight to whatever we have, and then at the following meeting we can maybe consider applications. Mr. Turner, do you have anything else to add on that?
No, sir.
Okay. Commissioners, do you have any questions about that? Okay. All right. The next item on the agenda is Mr. Thomas Bridges. Mr. Bridges is our former chairman of the Board of Commissioners. If you'll come up.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Mr. Bridges.
You'll have to excuse the allergies. Allergies is hitting us pretty hard right now. Walked out a while ago and didn't hardly recognize my call. That yellow collar. I want to thank Mr. Turner for putting me on the agenda tonight. I want you to thank you, commissioners, for giving me the opportunity to speak a little bit. That was a good update, Mr. Michelson. I appreciate you giving that update. I attended that meeting as a citizen that took place last Thursday night because I was one of the commissioners when we tried to get either a 3-year, 5-year, or 7-year audit of the airport. And the reason we do that is because as the former chairman at Hart County put it the other night, there's a cloud over our airport, and it needs to be removed. I could not believe I believe that firmly. We need to get that removed so our airport can sail like it's supposed to do. But tonight, I'm here primarily as a taxpayer. I pay thousands of dollars in taxes to the local. We spend hundreds of thousands in the airport. So as I was concerned to try to get the best possible results out of every penny, as a chairman of the commissioner, I'm also concerned as a taxpayer now that we still get results out of every penny. I appreciate the comments that I heard Dr. Michelson make, in fact that the county is in good financial condition. I want to thank you board for putting it there. I want to thank Bill Thomas for putting it there, because we are in good financial condition, which is what you should be. But I do have some questions. As I was listening at that meeting the other night, I was concerned we want to remove the cloud off of the airport. And then I discovered they had a piece of paper handed out, and they asked the question, we want to go 3, 5, or 7-year audit. One of the commissioners at Hart County spoke up and said, let's do a 7-year, which I thought was a good suggestion on his part. The part I was disappointed in was the fact that they wanted to end it in 2018. Now let me remind you, audits for the airport is from July 1 year to June the next year. So if you look at ending it in 2018, the cloud wasn't over the airport at that time. It came in 2018, 19, and 19, 20. Those 2 years. We got a good firm, it appears to be a good firm that will do an independent, unbiased opinion of the airport, which should give us a clear picture of the airport. But I discovered they're not covering it in this $40,000. Spending $40,000, you ought to certainly hit that the cloud is hanging over the airport. Because now they say we got, which we do have, 18 and 19. I have a copy here of the 18 and 19. As we talked previously, I believe Mr. Wester brought it out. It's not a complete audit. Believe me, it just shows receive, and pay out. But what really caught my attention of that audit that was completed 18 and 19, what caught my attention was the fact that our airport spent $106,000 for fuel. And the audit showed they only collected $103,000. Now that's plus, a little plus of those two figures. So it was a pretty obvious to me a $3,000 shortage in that particular thing. It didn't show the number of hangars. It did not show the rent payment for those hangars collected and so forth. It did not show the land lease. So as I looked at that the other night as a citizen, I said, spending $40,000, we need to clean the cloud out. So now they're saying the treasurer and the secretary will have an audit made when it comes in April. Well, that's fine. But I'm asking the citizens, why are we spending $40,000 not removing the cloud? I wouldn't be here tonight if I could got the answer. I called some of the commissioners. I called one of the Hart County commissioners, and I just asked a simple question. Why had we use that 7 years and get these things from get-go at the top and come down. Then I checked back and recollect what I saw at the office when I was chairman of the commissioners. There's a full-blown audit at the commissioner's office done by Rustin and Associates, talking about a prison audit, just like I'm talking about, already in 2013 and 14. In fact, they did that for 7 years. They started in 2007, went all the way to 2014. Now, from that point on, up until 2019, Rustin and Associates assisted our county clerk on the monies that were received from their court and monies that went out. So there was a partial audit of those years, which was good. Now, when Rustin Associates went to do the 2018-19 audit, which is the one that was performed by an audit firm in the court, Rustin Associates was told, we don't need you anymore, we're going to do our independent audit. So therefore, the chairman of the airport lined up and had that audit done, which is a partial audit. I asked some of the commissioners when I was talking, did you realize it didn't cover the top two? That's I got to know. I didn't realize it didn't cover those last 2 years. In other words, they voted on something that they really didn't understand. So, I know I can have a question and answer sheet here, being on the agenda, and that's primarily why I asked to be on the agenda rather than just a statement. We're spending $40,000, gentlemen. Why not include the last 2 years?
Well, Mr. Bridges, you remember, because you chaired that meeting in December, you co-chaired it.
That's correct.
That we chose these years. We said that 2019 was the base, and we went back from that. So, if I remember, you voted for them to put out the RFP for that. And wait a minute, let me finish. The RFPs have already been submitted. People have submitted bids, and they're based on that. Now, we agreed as a board we didn't agree, but the feeling was among the board members that we would have the airport authority pick up the audits from this point forward, because it's not the job of the county to pay for the airport's audits. But there have been a lot of questions raised about the finances of the airport authority going back way beyond the last 2 years. And so I know in past years, at some point, as you talked about, the audits were stopped. But we felt, Hart County and Franklin County, we need to pick somebody who is totally unconnected to Franklin County, not from this area, not somebody like Rustin, who have a lot of respect for, but they've worked for us before, to do this audit and take an independent look at all the finances. And so that's what we're going to do. Now, the airport authority says they're going to discuss doing an audit, and they may or may not. And it may be possible, once we see the results of this initial 7-year period, that we expand that. But we're going to have to take that as it comes. And so we'll wait and see.
Dr. Maxwell, if you go back and look at the minutes.
I went and listened to the meeting when it's reported.
December.
Right.
We just said 3 year, 5 year, or 7 years. We didn't discuss.
We did. We talked about going back from 2019.
We were going to do.
Yes, we did.
We discussed actually just doing those years. I don't recall us.
I went and listened to the minutes. There was a prolonged discussion about how long we would do it, and what we decided was we're not sure how long we want to do it because we don't know how much it's going to cost. So we agreed to do the RFPs for a 3 year, 5 year, and 7 year period. Right. See what it costs. It might be cost effective, which we felt it was, to do the whole 7 year period. It might be, let's just do 3 years, depending on the cost, and see what we find. But we discussed it with 2019 as the baseline going back from that. So that's where those dates came from. We can't go back now that we've awarded the bid and change the dates on them until we see what they say.
So the decision was made about who sent that out.
No, the board talked about it in those terms, but the discussion related around 2019 as the baseline, going back from that.
Hart County's administrator is the one that set it out.
He set it out.
In
They
fact,
handled
in
it.
fact, me going off the board, we asked the Hart County to send it out.
We did that
But
in
in my
December.
perspective, if I was sending it out, I would send it out so it would get the cloud over. Why do you think I would move the cloud off if we omit the last 2 years?
So I'm sorry, I didn't hear what you said.
Why would you think that's going to remove the cloud?
I don't know that it's going to find anything, but I want to find out, and this is a good starting point to go back for the last 7 years from 2019.
So we're going to pay extra money for the last 2 years to get it done.
I don't know. We'll see.
Can't count.
I don't know why the airport authority can't do their own audit from that point forward.
It's just don't cost taxpayers money. That's all.
I mean, it's their job to do their own audit. I mean, we're doing it because of the issues that have been raised in the past for this 7-year period. And I won't say we might go back depending on what we find and take a look at those 2 additional years, but we've got to start somewhere, and a 7-year audit is a good place to begin. We are not here to relitigate the issues of the last year that have tied this board in knots. So I'm going to have to cut you off at this point. Do you have any further questions? I can answer them.
I'm sorry.
And then we'll cut you
I
off.
was counting on you probably doing that. I got a couple other questions.
Oh, go ahead.
We'll just take a minute.
Okay.
Time is very important. In fact, it's very important for me because I'm planning on leaving here and going to see my grandson play soccer, Franklin County, playing Stevens County. And that's why.
Well, we want you to get to your game.
But the question is, I'd like to ask, I still don't understand why we didn't cover it like I interpreted it, but nevertheless, as a citizen, we expect y'all to go to full-blown audit of the last 2 years when the cloud was created.
Well, the cloud wasn't created then. But again, we are not relitigating the issues of the last year that, frankly, you used to tie this board in knots. So let's stop now. If you finish up your questions, and we'll try to answer them, then we need to move on.
Next question. When was the last meeting of the airport?
I don't know that. I do know they have a planned meeting for April, but I don't know when their last meeting was.
If you look at their legislation, they are only required to meet one time, and that's in April.
Yeah.
That's correct. They're required.
Now, I believe they've met since then, but I'm not 100% sure.
They are required. The legislation requires to meet once a year. The last meeting they had was last July. My next question, that Advertise last meeting, when he discovered that, who's running the airport? Who is the manager of the airport? Can y'all answer that question?
Right now, it's operated by the board members, and right now, the primary person that has responsibility for that is Mike Ward. He's the vice chair. But they all, they're all volunteers, so they all pitch in. And I think that they do a commendable job. They volunteer a lot of time to take care of that airport authority.
All right, let's leave it in this fashion right here. I mentioned this before. You can't find an airport in the state of Georgia that doesn't have a full-time manager to make sure that they advertise, spread the word, and receive funds from the federal government. In checking with other airports our size, they got managers, and as Stevens County manager told me, they did not spend all the money the federal government sends to the airport. We have some good people volunteering their time. As a volunteer, from sun up to sundown, we don't know which one of those volunteers are handling the airport. We don't know which one is sending off to try to get additional funds from Franklin County. If we spend thousands of dollars as taxpayers, we need to get some type of management over there and utilize these people. As one guy put it to me the other day, that's on the IBA, and the IBA has one appointee. That person told me it looked like a social club to me.
Mr. Bridges, you weren't there. You can't comment. That's kind of subjective. We need to get to the end of your questions because we really need to move on.
And how does it look to you? I'll leave it with that. How does it look for you guys?
Well, if I remember correctly, you were chairman for 8 years, so you've been monitoring that airport authority. But okay, so they've been doing a good job with it.
because we had a system where Rustin and Associates was doing. So,
No, but they haven't done it in a long time.
Until 2019.
No, till
And my life
2014.
was going good.
You
I
said
don't
it
know
stopped.
Why, if they come up
Mr.
after
President.
that, other than we had a different person. Now, I know y'all busy, but I want to ask the question to the citizens.
No, you need to address your comments to the
I'm going to
board.
ask the question to y'all.
Thank you.
Are we going to have an airport that's fully pledged to try to serve the citizens of Franklin County? Or are we going to have a social club over there that does not serve the purpose? I asked personally, the IBA director, has the airport ever assisted you in getting any economical development in Franklin County? Zero. Thank you, gentlemen.
Thank you, Mr. Bridges.
I'd like to speak to that.
Let's go ahead. You can go ahead.
First of all, there was a cloud that started from a long time ago with the airport authority. There were questions that were brought to us as commissioners that I know I proposed individually to those members that were on here at that time. So the cloud started way before 2018. The simple fact is, when this board found out that we had not made appointments since 99 or 2001 when we were supposed to make an appointment.
Since the inception of the airport.
So that tells me that this social club that we're discussing was way back when, and it was all through several people's terms. So you can blame it on somebody that was appointed that you didn't like, but you don't want to go back and look at all of the years before then. And that's the issue I have with this. We're wanting to focus on these 2 years is what we're being asked to focus on. But that focus was only on one person that there was dislike about. And I think that's been seen in previous meetings that we've had, when I think we were in the wrong discussing an ongoing GBI investigation in our meetings. And the investigation was brought up by the former chairman in that meeting. And I don't think it should have ever been discussed in an open meeting when you got an ongoing GBI investigation. But if you look, that's when the issue started. And when we started trying to look back at what was going on, that's when the fight started. So that should clear some things up.
Commissioner Swales? Wait a minute.
I mean, with all due respect, you seem like you're surprised by things that have happened in the past that we're all very well aware of what had occurred.
On what subject you talking about?
Well, just anything. You said you talked to the IBA director and they said the airport authority hasn't contributed. Well, sorry, but the chair of the IBA was also the chair of the airport authority for quite a long time. Exactly. So if there's any finger to be pointed, I would start there and say, why didn't that person not work toward developing an airport authority that is contributing to the growth of Franklin County? I mean, he was ahead. Another thing that, I think we're all pretty well aware of is before the board of the airport authority started actually working things out over the last 2 years, a lot of times decisions were made by one or two people without full support or even a quorum. Can I get a confirmation on that has occurred? Or even an official vote? That's a yes?
Yes.
So the times in question that we're bringing up, these 7 years, are occurring over a period of time before there was an active and actively engaged group of men, and it actually happened because we realized at that point that it was our duty. So when I came on the board, nobody knew. There was 20 years where nobody had been appointed from us.
Right.
So this goes back way beyond me becoming a commissioner. I think if we're going to play like this, this deal where, well, you should have known, you should do this, you should do this, we didn't know, well, yeah, okay. I mean, let's not act surprised like these things.
Well,
we kind of figured out.
What bothers me is that you say you're surprised by what we did last week, but you co-chaired the meeting in December where these decisions were set up. And we sent out RFPs through Hart County for those intervals. They all reported back to do those intervals. So this is not a surprise to anybody how this was set up. I'm not saying we won't look farther, but 7 years is a good place to start. we'll see what we find if we need to go further. In the meantime, the airport authority is going to pick up their annual audits. They've agreed that's their responsibility, and they're going to do it. And that's how we exert accountability, through having those audits done and monitoring their operations. Do you, Commissioner Franklin or Commissioner Foster, do you have anything to add? All right. Well, we need to move on, but I appreciate you coming.
I agree that, and I realize we got to do something. But the questions I brought out: who is running the airport?
Well, we appreciate you coming. We've answered those questions.
Also,
Someone have you have a seat now, Mr. Bridges. That's it. We don't have any more time. Please sit down.
You updated the airport up in more.
Please sit down, Mr. Bridges. This discussion is over.
The citizens of Franklin County need to
Mr. Bridges, you have had plenty of time to speak. Please have a seat. I thank you for coming.
Mr. Chairman, if you go back and look, when we made the new appointments, that's the most transparent that airport authority.
That's exactly right.
I think we can also up here and say we received emails with minutes from every meeting that they had and everything. And that's the first time we knew of what was going on at the airport.
The operation of the airport in the last few years has been very transparent compared to what we received in the past. I was on the board for 2 years and never heard anything from the airport authority. But let's move on to our. I'm sorry. Thank you.
We're going to a soccer match.
Good luck. The next item on the agenda is the Livonia Villas project, and Mr. Andy Camp, I've lost track of you, Mr. Camp, is here to talk to us about a proposed housing development that'll be located partially in Livonia and partially in Franklin County. So, Mr. Camp, thank you for coming tonight.
Thank you. I appreciate your time tonight. Can y'all hear me okay?
Yes, sir.
I just want to make sure we do what I feel like I'm supposed to do. We were in Athens today, weren't we?
Yes, sir.
I thought I recognized you when you stepped up here. That was a big takeaway for me too.
Very, very big takeaway.
And I'm glad you mentioned that, because that's part of the reason why we're talking about this project. And I like to use development or whatever. I don't want anyone to have any type of connotation about the project. That's one of the reasons I wanted to come and discuss it with you all. Let you know where we're at, that you'll be seeing some more information from us. But I always just like to let everybody know as much as I can, as early as I can. So the project that we're talking about doing is it's a townhouse development for rent, and it'll also have so it'll have some scale vertically, but it'll also have a single-story cottage with it as well that would accommodate both younger and older folks. We believe that there's a market for both of those, and the reason we think that is because what we've seen really over the last several years is that prices keep going up, but it doesn't necessarily match up with what people can pay. So the idea is that there's a lot of delayed life events occurring with younger folks. I'm not in that category. When I graduated from Auburn, I'm sorry to say it, I know it's not the wrong place to mention that, but I was very fortunate that it was still very affordable at the time. So we know a lot of younger folks that may be pursuing a post-secondary degree are coming out of school with a lot of debt. And then we're also seeing that people just prefer to rent. My parents fall into this category. They're loving life. They're empty nesters. They go see the grandkids, turn the key, and they leave. We think there's a market for both of those in the community. And what it provides is it provides a chance to have a very strong workforce. The 20% number that the gentleman mentioned really kind of took me aback a little bit. I was like, holy cow, we better find shelter for these people. Or, quite candidly, they won't come. Or if they're already here, they won't stay, which is even worse. I saw that y'all have a career academy on the backside of the high school over there, and it was something that I had the pleasure to work on when I was in Troup County, from Georgia, born and raised. And I just remember how much that project meant to the community, because we were training the youth to go out and be in the workforce and pursue things that were already in the community as jobs they could fill, they could go do, trying to teach them skills and let them be a part of the community and stay. We invested so much in them. That's what we were hoping to do. So that's the idea behind the project, which would be give or take about 200 units, and we would have a variety of different little nuances to floor plans. but we would go with the 2-story as well as a single story so we could accommodate a variety of different folks looking for different amenities in there, as well as hopefully filling what becomes an economic development challenge, which is, getting the rest of the downstream benefits. So when jobs are created, whether that's through the attraction or the organic growth, whether it's a small business, medium or larger business, the idea is that you ultimately do create opportunities for folks that are already here, or the opportunity for new folks to come into the community and fill those jobs. That migration is tough to do if you don't have a place for someone to live. In addition to that, like we talked about, the investment in younger folks, but also the ability for people to come in, get acquainted with the community, then find a home that they would go purchase, plant some roots, raise their families here, and continue that generationally, hopefully, and also continue to grow opportunities. So looking at housing options, are they within the budgets of folks? And then does it provide some migration through there? And then the last thing I'll just mention is the positive impact of the project. So these will all occur relatively quickly. So unlike maybe a single family development where over time the homes are built, this will come in fairly quickly. We know that rooftops tend to drive decisions for service businesses. So healthcare, retailers, restaurants are all trying to be close to those customers because a lot of those spending decisions are made close to home. And then, of course, there'll be increased opportunities for enterprises that the cities offer, like water and sewer and things like that. So, of course, the costs have gone up, so a lot of times there's a little bit of help that's needed. I do plan on bringing a little more information on that when you see me again. But we just wanted to go ahead and kind of make an intro. I'd had a chance to talk to a few folks about the project, but I hadn't done anything formally with you all. I can circulate some additional information about some of the hypothesis, if you will. But it is proven. So we have a partner that's done this project in another community. Had the chance to see it yesterday, and it looks very nice. We believe that it will have the same positive impact as yours. That was all I had tonight. I appreciate your time.
Did you say there is, or do you know of a template community that is essentially the same or similar that we could, if we could say, yeah, we had an afternoon to go check it out, we could check it out?
Yes, and it's not that far away. The cottages at Ridge Point in Athens.
Okay.
Are outside of Athens.
Where are you guys in the actual development of this project? I mean, are we just still talking about it, or have you made any decisions to move forward?
So we have property tied up. We've gone through and done some due diligence on it as well. And we're getting pretty close to being able to prove out that we're going to be able to make things work. And that'll be part of the next time you see this will be some things that are a little more related to the entitlement of that and some other things that would help out.
Okay. Commissioners, do you have any other questions?
I've got one.
Okay.
Yes,
Will you be bringing in your own construction crew, or will that be going to possibly some local graders, masons, carpenters?
That's a fantastic question. We actually take a look at what that impact would be, and we only look at it as hiring within that local region. So it's difficult to look at that labor force and the supply chain within a political boundary. But we would want it to be folks that are already here that can offer that. So whether it's Franklin County, hard stop, or whether it's Franklin, Hart, Stevens, regionally speaking, that would be what we would aim for. And that's the only way we look at it, because we believe that makes the most sense. It is a larger project, so it's a possibility to go the other route. But yes, you'd have our commitment to do as much of that as possible from a local standpoint.
Do you plan to do this in like phases, like 1, 2, 3, 4 phases, or?
No, we think we got it right sized, so it would be a nice impact immediately.
Okay.
So it'll take a little time to build.
That's right.
But I think you'd see most of it done.
And what you may have already said this, but I didn't hear. What's the target rent that you're looking at? Like, and I know there may be a range, but what are we looking at as far as?
There is a range, and what we try to do is we try to hit the range that's market rate, so there's no subsidy of it. So, but we look at, what's the income from an average household standpoint, and we try to back into that. So someone's not cost burdened. And the number I always heard was about 30%. So 30% of their income would go towards the rent, or mortgage payment, or whatever the case may be. Now, I think the banks might let you bite off a little more than that sometimes, but we believe that would allow people to continue to spend money in the community, go to downtown and have dinner, maybe hit one of the restaurants that maybe is more of a national presence out of the interstate or what have you. But they'd be able to spend some of their money at home, and they wouldn't be in a position where all of it goes towards paying their rent utilities, which is unfortunately where we are with a lot of this. We do have a serious housing problem, not specifically here, broadly speaking. And if we're expecting more people to grace our state and our region, we hopefully will be thinking about ways that we can do it that's agreeable with them, gets the right folks, attracts the right people, folks that want to contribute as well, by having a job, and then spend the money back in the community on services, retail, and other items that kind of add up to all of those ways that grow the community through the taxation and everything else that they provide.
Okay. Well, we appreciate you. Got any other questions?
So you said the rent would be 30% of their income, or that would be like kind of what you would try to set the.
Yes, it's not fixed. I'm sorry.
Okay.
It's not like it's not a calculation that you might run into for something that's controlled.
Okay.
We just try to find that number based on what we see.
So you will have a set number.
Yes.
Okay.
And hopefully we hit it just right, and we're able to make it work for everybody.
Okay.
That's the balancing act, and it's really hard to do.
What what kind of assistance are you asking for? Assistance from the county, or from the city, or from the Board of Education?
We're talking to the Joint Development Authority right now because we believe that that's the right entity because of the regional nature of it, and they would probably come back and talk to you all about some of the things that we're discussing now.
So you don't have any specific
I don't have
thing to
anything
ask for?
specific to tell you tonight because we're still trying to whittle down to that, based on the number that you were just mentioning. So.
Okay.
How long do you think it take to build?
If the weather cooperates,
Yeah,
it would be, no more than 12 to 18 months. Now, that may not be from today. We'd have to close on the property, finish design, solidify some of the things that we would be talking to that authority about, and then, plow ahead, if you will.
Okay.
So pray for good weather when we do break ground. So we'll take just enough rain to make everything grow and not enough to get everything.
Well, we appreciate you coming and talking to us. I know there have been discussions about this sort of thing, and maybe it's gone through numerous, iterations. So we're glad to have some concrete information to think about.
Well, the last year's made things difficult because of being able to be in front of folks, make and build those relationships. And this is just a complicated thing that's really just hard to explain over Zoom or in an email. But we certainly want everybody to feel good about this. This does not come with the attached things that you see through HUD projects and other types of things that have the stipulations with them.
Mm-hmm.
We'd like to do something that fills the need and provides something that everybody would be very proud to have, as well as the existing employers, school system, hospital, whomever would direct people. Hey, welcome, glad to have you teaching. Here's a great place that we think that you can land. We'd love to have you live here and not make that commute. And then hopefully they plant roots, and next thing you know, their kids are in the school system.
Yeah.
My mom was a teacher, and that was an experience that was fun in and of itself.
Well, Mr. Turner, do you have questions for him?
I don't think I have any further questions at this time.
Okay. All right.
And we can always follow up later. I know we started talking before Mr. Turner joined the team up here, so happy to make sure that we have all the information in as well.
All right. Thank you.
Thank you all.
Appreciate you coming.
Appreciate your time.
The next item on the agenda is sort of related to this, and that's the litter on county roads and derelict properties. And several of us have been interested in this, but it goes along with trying to recruit industries and people to live here, because when they ride up and down the roads, they see an accumulation of trash that can have a psychological impact and can impact us negatively. So Commissioner Wester asked to place this on the agenda, so I'm going to kind of turn the discussion over to him.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'm going to use you and Commissioner Foster to run into this because thanks to camera phones, you can't sneak around and do nothing anymore. But thank you for both of y'all taking your time to go out on the side of one of our county roads and pick up litter. I think one of our citizens saw you, got a picture, and got it on social media pretty quick.
I think so.
But I have received some phone calls and had some visits from some people that were concerned about it, and I know I've had concerns about it because I live on Harrison Bridge Road, and you can drive down that road at any given time, and you see trash that people's just thrown out of their vehicles while they're driving down the road. It's not attractive for our county, and I think the majority of our citizens have a whole lot more respect for our county and everything. And one of the things I was wanting to maybe see if we could start getting the ball rolling on is some kind of community project, community awareness to where maybe we get together with local businesses, citizen groups, and have some days set aside to where maybe we do some community cleanups from time to time and do what we can to make sure we're keeping our communities clean, our streets clean, and everything that looks attractive to people coming through. Because if you stop and think about it, not just on the interstate, but on our other major roads, we have a lot of traffic comes through, whether they're coming to one of our state parks, whether they're passing through Franklin County, going to Hart County for, some of the things that they offer with the lakes or whatever. It's still, that's their first impression of our county. And I think it's something that we really need to start focusing on. And I know the sheriff has offered to do what he can, to help with this. And I don't think we need to lay the burden all on them to clean up our roads. I think that's something that you and Commissioner Foster have set the example for. And I think that's something we all need to look at and get some community involvement if we can to help clean up our county.
I think that's a good idea. The amazing thing is you ride down the road and you see the big shiny stuff. But then if you walk up down the roads, there's a whole lot of stuff there that you don't even see from a distance, when you're driving by. And it's a huge problem. And the sheriff has helped us. They've taken crews out. And the marshal, we have a new marshal, and he has been doing a lot of work. But he's one person, and it's a big county. And so he has to tackle it case by case. Y'all want to add anything?
I agree with Commissioner West. We need to do something. We need to get a community involved, some groups. I know some people in my district have taken it among themselves to do it. So I think we need to just expand that and get some groups or some clubs to do it.
I had a comment about the new marshal, and they made a comment that they really like him. He seemed like a super nice young guy, and he's ready to go to work. He's getting some communities cleaned up where there was, trash everywhere.
Right. And
so this particular guy, I saw him in the local hardware store, and he came up and said, "Y'all did a great job of hiring this guy." So
we like to hear that.
You can pass the word on to the new marshal. So we got comments from him.
One other option, there are some services maybe we could look into contracting out to do some of the roads or some of the more highly trafficked roads that would assist the sheriff and the marshal. And I don't know what the cost of that would be. I guess that's what we need to do is find out what the cost would be, because I think that's something that several have expressed interest in.
Yeah, I know that I have the email from someone that does some work within Forsyth County and a couple of areas that does it by a certain mileage span. I think it'd be an opportunity, kind of talking as far as kind of groups to organize. You've probably heard of like Keep Gwinnett Beautiful. They have that type of group that does that specifically for the county. If we formulated some type of group, I guess, to that realm would be an idea to kind of get the community involvement, because it would be important, even if we do hire somebody or we get everything cleaned up, that everyone has the buy-in to say that we're going to keep it clean at that point. We can pay somebody over and over again to clean everything, but if everybody doesn't care and just throws the trash out, at the end of the day, we're just talking about this motion every single year. So I think it'd be an opportunity to where we can look at some type of organization like that. That should be a relatively easier form, and try to get some volunteers towards that, some community leaders that can really lead that charge for us, and really get some people involved in being out there on the weekends. But we could also still look at some of those contracted deals to where they're covering whatever amount of mileage we think is appropriate. So we can start working on getting some quotes to it.
Can't we have like a community cleanup week designated each year or something as well, like so that we get it before spring, before it's impossible to see what's on the side of the road, and
That's good.
and just have a target where we reach out, have businesses participate. I know businesses would love to get involved with that kind of thing. The county could even cover the cost of the waste as far as, it's going to be added trash. Then we can take it to that disposal place on Harrison Bridge Road even. Something to facilitate it, to make it where people...
And once the rains come and the grass is growing and our county maintenance is out there trying to cut grass on the side of the roads, that's when you really see how bad it is. And that's whenever it really stands out and it's really bad. So then you got trash not only on the side of the road, you got trash in the road that's blowing everywhere. And I think like you said, I think that it'd be a great idea if we could bring, if it's feasible money-wise, bring a group company and have that. And even if we only have to use it one time, even if we can get the community buy-in that they got it clean. Now it's up to us to keep it that way.
Right, Commissioner Swills, to your point of that kind of the kind of forgiveness kind of events that you have, to where you say, okay, all the old junk that you have in your yard, we'll pick up everything. Sort of that one-time spring cleaning event, to where people that have old tires or whatever the case may be in their yard that would normally leave it in their yard. Those type of events usually encourage everybody to say, well, I'm going to get this out of my yard. I don't have to pay for it. I just have to get it there.
Right.
It's usually not an extreme cost as far as picking up those and the disposal of those. So that'd be an idea to look at.
We could do more as part of the community cleanup, get more groups to adopt roads, maybe the roads they live on. That would be a way to keep it going, because hopefully people will take pride in where they live once it's cleaned up. But it's really a big education piece. I mean, if people don't care how it looks, we can pick it up. Kyle and I went and picked up, and that afternoon I rode right down the same road, and it had been cleaned that morning, and it was quickly piling back up. So it's a constant battle, and it's something you really can't do one time. You got to keep at it. Anybody else?
Speaking of Derek's point, the city of Livonia did that back, I think, last fall, last spring, did the same thing. Well, they had 3 or 4 dumpsters and whatever. Everything was fair game. You could bring just about anything. So just something like that would be great for the county residents.
It's so frustrating, though. My mom would have whipped my butt if she'd known I had done something like that. Anyway, what's happening to people?
Anybody else have comments about that or questions? Okay. The next item on the agenda is the manager's report, and I'm going to turn this over to Mr. Turner. He's got several things to talk to us about.
Yeah, I'll try to be brief, just for being here too long. But first thing to look at, and I've got a kind of a slideshow presentation in the packet there with you, is a couple of policy considerations to take a look at. Something that currently did was running the PTO. Current PTO policy allows for the full about 480 hours per employee. What I'm looking at within this policy consideration, this would need to be a board decision, would be the recommended adjustment to allow just up to the accrual of 240 hours. Currently with this, and the reason that we looked at this is just that the liability that you take on with PTO, of course, being paid out is a guaranteed payout whenever people do leave the county. So currently, as you kind of see, with 45 employees carrying over 240 hours, we have approximately about 119 or so employees that are below that mark. The future payout of that, and of course, those 45 employees that are over 240, not guaranteed that they're going to all retire or leave the county within the next year, but you probably estimate that that's going to be over possibly a 5 to 7 year period. That payout currently for them would be about $600,000 just for that 45 employees of that group. The 119 employees that pay out, if that section left, would be about $150,000. So you have a pretty huge windfall as far as the difference in being able to accrue those values. All staff that is over 240 hours, we would grandfather into, they can keep those hours that they have. We're not going to penalize them for their length of service. But the difference in this, if those 45 employees that are currently over 240 hours, if they were at the 240 mark, business savings of about $255,000. So this is just, like I said, going to be a board decision as far as how we proceed with this, but it's just something that we need to think about as far as people are accruing and not taking time off. Can we really look at that and say that's a windfall that we want to run into in the coming years?
And that would be for all county employees, I mean, not just the Board of Commissioners office?
Correct.
Okay. Commissioners, do you have questions?
Do we have, you might know, Mr. Tax Commissioner, do we have any say over how you treat PTO for yours or even the Sheriff's Department? Because I don't believe we would.
That might be a question for both.
Okay.
I think traditionally we've kind of followed the county's policy. Is that correct here?
Mostly, but I've got, we're a little different, because if we've got people that I got to keep coming in, you know, and I keep, you know, they take that time to add money at the end of retirement, that's what you want to do.
Yeah.
I don't see why I can't.
Sure.
Roll the time over.
Yeah.
I got one investigator, I know he's got hundreds of hours. Every time he starts to take off, he gets called.
Yeah.
Gotcha. I was just curious if we enacted this, we want to reach out, obviously see if we're all on the same page to make it happen.
Yeah. I've been in discussions with Bubba. He's still working on looking at that.
But we would, whatever they have now, if they're over that mark, we would say you keep what you have.
Correct.
Would we cap them or allow them to continue to the 480? We just cap them where they are under that proposal.
And I guess that'd be for discussion for us to take a
Okay.
look at to say, do we want to just stop it where they are, or do we want to continue to go towards the grandfathered cap?
Okay.
So that would be an option as well.
Any other questions? Okay.
All right. Second thing that I have policy consideration is, and you have I think something attached to that, is the policy of looking at the entrance of the county really getting into the film industry. Had conversations with people of looking at some potential sites of where we would be able to conduct film business within the county. I think there's an opportunity for that. This is something that I think that we just need to take a look at as we are growing. We need to probably look at the infrastructure of our policy and procedures, just so that when we do get to that growth, we've already got things in place for how we want it to run, so that we're not kind of surprised by something coming in and then not really knowing how to handle it. So what you have in your packet there is just a generated policy. I've been talking to Buckle about this just to kind of see what that needed to look like, and it is pretty similar to, I believe, Fayette County's as far as how they enact that. But it's just a situation, actually meeting with some people today, I think there'd be some excitement of getting some people here. It's not so much of a, there is the revenue that it does generate in some respects. That's not probably the main point that I want to focus on as far as looking at the film industry, but just the exposure to the county, just a chance to highlight. And I guess that's why looking at some of those things like the litter and make sure that we do look good as people do want to come and film, but we want to make sure that we do, as we have any of those industries come, we want to go ahead and have policies in place that are going to allow us to really more set the terms of what those agreements are, instead of it being a little bit misled sometimes by those industries.
Do we, in say the last 5 to 10 years, do we have any idea how many times have movies been produced? I know that there've been a few.
Yeah, I don't have a solid number with the form and policy that I created for you there too. It also gives us a chance to track what that volume
What's
is,
actually coming through,
and also the types. So it'll let us kind of know what they're using within those movies or films or whatever it may be within that film. But it will give us a chance to then at that point track how many we have a little bit easier and say what is actually coming here, what do people like to see. It might be something that we're able to more highlight what the film industry likes within Franklin County at that point.
Okay. Any questions?
When I was with Washington Downtown Development, we became a film-ready community, which I don't know if that's what they call it anymore. But it was the same type of thing that you're talking about. We took different pictures that made, if someone was producing a film looking for certain types of areas or whatever. But I think that's good to have for our county.
Okay.
And talking with Bubba, I think this is one that I can enact, but I just wanted to make sure to still bring it before the board, just so that we're all on the same page and aware of everything that we are trying to do.
Right. Okay. Mm-hmm.
All right, so flipping to the next slide that you have, this is just looking through, and I did this kind of on purpose, looking at everything through period 6, so kind of the ability to look through numbers on a quarterly view. We'll continue to modify how we're looking at the numbers and what those numbers mean for the county. But we just want to start with the ability of looking at where we stand as far as financially through revenues and expenditures. This is a bigger picture view, so this is only something, and we'll have this on the website, of having what those revenues are, but it's just the major funds. So you see that it says revenues through period 6, but it's also talking about the major revenues. So any of the smaller type of revenues outside of Fund 100, 215, 228, 505, the water fund, we've left those out. And then we just give a grand total. What you kind of look at this, as far as how to look at this, and we'll kind of talk through this some and keep working through this, is you're looking for trends. So as you can kind of see, looking at Fund 100, you can see that that's building towards an upward trend. As you see, Fund 215, the 911 fund, that's basically a fund that's essentially staying flat. Fund 228, again, another fund that is staying relatively flat. If you look at the water fund, you can see a little bit of a dip. You can see a rise actually from 2019 to 2020 actuals, and then you see our current actuals on a comparative basis through period 6, they're back lower. Probably the possibility of what that contributes to could be something more in the effect of the pandemic. So you have a lot of people that are maybe a little bit more at home, a little more water usage. Those are the type of things that you see that happen within that. So you are looking for those trends or those kind of spikes that you have within the financials to kind of understand what that means. And then you also have the totals. Now the totals do include the minor funds. So you can still see with that total through the 6-month period across all funds, we're still a slight trend upwards, but relatively flat.
Can you tell us the different Fund 100? Is that a general fund?
Yeah, so Fund 100 is the general fund.
And what about 228?
And 228 is the it's slipping my mind this particular second.
I think it's important. I think it's important that we start looking at the financials every month. I mean, that ought to be a part of our regular monthly meeting. And so, I mean, if you want to experiment with different report formats just every month, and we can kind of look at them and go. But that way, we're not just looking at the finances, at the end of the budget process. I think that would help us have a better understanding of that year round, as we go through the year.
Yeah, absolutely. It's good to kind of know where we stand if there's any changes and we're able to enact any changes or take action towards those changes that we need to a little bit quicker instead of us sort of seeing it at the end of the year and there being a need to rush towards movement. So just playing around with them. This was just something kind of simple and creative to start, but we'll go from there. We'll just keep taking a look at what we can make. We will catch ourselves up. This is, like I said, period 6, so that would be through the end of December.
Right.
So this just gives us a half year, just a clean view. It's easier to view in a half year term. But we will catch ourselves up through period 7, 8, and then current finish 9. And then we'll catch those back up in the next month. So that'll be another quarter that we'll be viewing in addition to this.
All right. Commissioners, do you have questions?
Just thank you for filing this.
Yeah, just appreciate that.
I'll try to blow through the last couple pretty quickly. Just looking at expenditures, so same premise. Looking at expenditures through period 6, so the end of December. Still, again, looking at the trends of those, you can see now expenditures you would hope to see either staying flat or potentially down. So you can see with the general fund that is trending more downward. So essentially with us looking at a downward trend, we're talking about us having less spending, potentially, or trending towards less spending. Our smaller funds, 215, 228, they're still remaining relatively flat. You can see with the water fund 505 that is still also trending downward. and the total, including the minor funds, are also trending downward. So that can be a good thing for us. It doesn't mean that we're telling departments that they don't need to spend money. The departments, if they need things for citizens or for operations, we're still encouraging everybody to spend money. But it's just being fiscally responsible whenever we are typically either staying flat or trending downward.
Okay, that's good information to have.
All right, the next one is, this is funds expenditures budgeted by the fund. So what this is basically showing you by fund how much of a percentage of our total expenditure budget is included within each fund. So for instance, looking at the general fund, about 65%. So 65% of our total expenditures come from the general fund, is what this means. And same thing as you go around with the other funds. This is just sometimes a good viewpoint to look and see sort of where the bulk of your spending is going to come from, or where it's budgeted at least. As you look at that and then you compare the totals at the end of the year, you're able to see whether you're meeting those marks or whether you're kind of falling short, over, whatever the case may be. It just allows you to better understand exactly where we're spending money, how we're spending money, and what those funds are entailing. So if we see differences in those funds year over year, it just allows us to have a better understanding of where we are and what we are doing. And this is total.
Any questions?
That's great.
Okay.
All right, I'll keep moving. So just a couple of things to talk about just real quick is I have on here water supply. So I've met with staff, and as we always know, we're looking at future water supplies as we're continuing to grow as a county. We want to make sure we're continually looking at water supplies just so that we know that if whatever business may come in or whatever population may come in, we have the ability to supply them. So we've opened up, we're going to be opening up general conversations with the city of Livonia, because of course, as you know, they have a portion of Lake Hartwell that they're able to use. There haven't been any directed conversations of any specifics at this time. This is just us broadly, everything on the table, have a broad discussion of what could be. And then of course, as we get into those discussions, we can narrow down what actually needs to happen. But it's just an opportunity for us, as I've spoken with Charles up there, that with them having possibly maybe a little bit more water available than what they need, also a wastewater plant, it could be a partnership that benefits both sides. So we just want to make you aware that we're open to those discussions.
Okay.
Next thing I have is the coroner's building. And you have a sheet behind that, I believe, with the cost affected to that. We have been going back and forth with Livonia looking at that to see what the cost of the coroner's building will be. And we have determined that that cost is going to be closer to that budgeted number you see there of about $56,857. This is due to the original quote that we have of $45,000, not including electrical and plumbing. So all of the plumbing and electrical work that they had to maintain the building and get the building back up to code was not included in the original quote from last year. So that's where that's coming from. I spoke to Charles today, and the plan is that they're actually looking at possibly still coming under budget, under this number, as of right now. So we still probably have some savings, but I know the question was raised as what the difference was in that original quote and then this quote that you have in front of you, and that's the answer, is that the electrical and plumbing was not included within that. So that's what that difference is.
Back in December, we sort of approved the idea that we would go forward with that quote. So are we going to need to take some action on this higher amount?
Yes, so we'll have to take action of approving this number, the $56,857 for approval. Like I said, we're going to be on pace to potentially end up coming underneath that quote, but you'll have to take action in order to approve the raise of the original quote.
So is that something we need to act on pretty quickly? I mean, do we need to do it at the next meeting?
We probably need to go ahead and put that on the next meeting. I know we have quite a bit on the next one, but I would recommend it's probably something we want to go ahead and handle, just that we have that in place and out of the way with us projecting and opening that building again. I believe it's June, I think it is.
Okay. Yeah. And so the way we would pay that, we're going to pay a quarter of that. Or how are we going to divide it up? Is it over 4 years?
Yeah, so we said over 4 years. that will pay this total.
And we're going to do that just in lump sums each year, or divide it up by month?
Monthly
Okay.
payments.
Okay. Any questions about that? Okay. All right. The next item on the agenda are announcements. So after having said all that, do you have any announcements?
Oh, the library board. Ms. Rhea called me this week and let me know that we actually have 2 open positions. She has reapplied for her position, so we still have an existing opening. I've got it advertised on the website.
Okay. All right. Well, everybody doesn't have objections. Let's just do that month per month each time. That can be our standard kind of do it 30 days unless some other need arises that we have to change that. Okay. Anything else? All right. I just want to take some time to share with the board the most recent unemployment statistics that were released for Franklin County and the surrounding regions. And this is for January 2021. This was compiled by the GMRC, Georgia Mountains Regional Commission. And our region includes Banks County, Dawson County, Forsyth, Franklin, Habersham, Hall, Hart, Lumpkin, Rabun, Stevens, Towns, Union, and White counties. And I just picked the 3 that are really closest to us in that, and that's Banks, Hart, and Stevens. If you look at the unemployment rate for Franklin County was 4.3%. Of those 4, Banks had the lowest at 3%. Hart County was at 4.5%, and Stevens County was the highest at 5.1%. And in that entire group of counties in our region, Banks had the lowest and Stevens had the highest. So not only within that subset, but for the entire area. And it was interesting. Our workforce number in January was reported to be 10,094, with 433 reporting unemployed. And the average wage, annual wage based on that, was $37,682. Among those 4, the highest average annual wage was Stevens County, $39,997. So that's kind of interesting. They also had the highest unemployment rate. So we'll try to update that each month as we get that from GMRC, because those are good statistics to have. And if you want, I have the whole report. I can send that to everybody. This is just a reminder, again, about upcoming meetings. The board is going to have a public hearing and a regular monthly meeting next Monday, April the 5th, and this will be at the Franklin County High School Auditorium. This is the Telford Center for the Arts. And this meeting will start at 5 o'clock. Normally, we start at 5:30. We're altering the time because we anticipate that lots of people will want to comment and we want to have more time available. So it will begin at 5 o'clock. The purpose of the public hearing is to receive public comments for or against proposed zoning applications, and the only planning and zoning item in this particular hearing will be Pilgrim's rezone and conditional use permit request to construct a rendering pet food manufacturing plant outside of Carnesville. The high school ag center has been designated as our overflow site. So if you remember with the planning and zoning, the overflow site was the community center. This time it will be the ag center. We're hoping that, the auditorium is large enough that we can put more people in there so we have fewer people in the overflow, but we don't ultimately know that until we see how many people are coming. Everyone will be directed to the overflow site once that main location fills up. And we ask that everyone follow recommended social distancing guidelines at these meetings. Both meetings will be live streamed on Zoom, but this will be for viewing only. Persons that wish to make comments have to be physically present in the auditorium. So the way we'll do that, those people who are in the overflow site who want to make comments will have time to come over. And so the way we'll handle that, we'll do the comments in the auditorium, and then we'll recess for a few minutes to give anybody who wants to make a comment in the overflow site time to come over. It's not too far, walking distance. Come over, line up, make your comments, and then they'll have time to go back before we restart so that they don't miss anything in the meetings. We normally have the hearing at 5:30, and normally it's short. We're done by 6, and we start the regular meeting. But we will hold that meeting open until everyone has had a chance to comment. We want to make sure everybody who wants to speak will be able to. Each person speaking will have 5 minutes to facilitate the meeting and be fair to everyone. We will strictly enforce the 5-minute time limit. Individuals can only speak once, and they cannot yield their unused time to another person. Everyone will be held to the same standards of decorum as the commissioners, so that means respectful civil discourse and avoiding personal attacks. And we want to say thank you. The planning and zoning hearing went very smooth. People came and talked tonight. It went very smooth, and we appreciate that. And we know that the hearing will go the same way. But that meeting will start at 5, and then it will end whenever everybody's finished talking. And then we'll probably, depending on the time frame, we may take a few minutes to recess and let everybody go to the bathroom and then come back and start the regular meeting. Commissioner Franklin, do you have any announcements?
Everything's good.
Okay, Commissioner Foster.
Everything.
Commissioner Swells.
Yeah, just briefly, I've spoken to a lot of you all, had a lot of conversations. Just want to say that I'm encouraged by quality of conversations that I've had with people, the respect that's given, the heart that people have behind their comments, and I think that's what representative democracy is about. And so it is encouraging to hear from everyone and hear your viewpoints on this proposal.
Okay, thank you, Commissioner Swells. Commissioner Lester.
Just to embarrass my son, happy 16th birthday to Will. I will be home in a few minutes so we can celebrate.
All right, thank you, Commissioners. At this time, is there a motion to adjourn?
I make a motion that we adjourn, Mr. Chairman.
All right, thank you. Commissioner Lester has made the motion. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Thank you, Commissioner Foster seconds the motion. Is there any discussion? All in favor of the motion to adjourn, signify by raising your right hand. All opposed, same sign. The motion will carry 4-0. We stand adjourned.